Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel ML Minded. Today's video has three agendas. First one, what one should do to get prepared well for the ML round interview. Second one, what hack should one follow in ML round interview. Third, my ML round interview experience. So let's get the video started. First, let us talk about what one should do during the preparation of an interview. First things first, get a good hold on all the classical machine learning algorithms like Naive Bayes, SVM, decision trees, random forest, boosting, bagging, etc. Everybody says this, right? But in today's video, we'll try to understand how to get a deep understanding of each and every algorithm. So what one should do is pick any of the material like article, a YouTube video or a course where a particular algorithm is explained both mathematically as well as intuitionally, and you must watch that video or read that article multiple times, where first few times you must try to get the intuition cleared and then you must try to understand the mathematics. Please take a note that every time you watch the video, watch it completely, because every time you will get to learn new thing, and there will be some things which will be asking some questions to you which will be cleared when you watch that video once again. Let's say a person chooses YouTube video as his medium to understand an algorithm. For example, let's say that person is trying to understand linear regression. When that guy watches the video for the first time, his focus will be to understand what the linear regression is, and he gets to know that in linear regression we actually model a line or a plane wherein we try to predict some set of outputs for a set of given inputs. When that same person watches the video for the second time, he will get to know that okay, we are predicting some value, but we make sure that this value is closer to the actual values. When he watches it for the third time, he will get to know what is called as mean squared error, and the same person, when he watches it for the fourth time, that person will get to know that there exists something called as R squared and P value, and this is how he will get to know everything about the linear regression. This is the method which basically I follow to understand an algorithm in better fashion, and I would also want you to try this method and let me know whether it is going to help you guys or not. The only focus should be that when you watch the video for n+1th time, you make sure that you get to learn something new apart from the things which you learned in all those n times of watching the video. Next thing is that each person should prepare his resume very well. When I say that the person should prepare on his resume very well, what I mean here is that for each and every word present in the resume, the person should be able to speak at least 2 to 3 lines. This is what is the criteria which I followed, and it helped me a lot to prepare very well for the interview. Now let me talk about 2 hacks which I used in my interview to crack the interview. The first hack is that while giving my intro, I added few magical lines at the end of my intro, and those magical lines goes like this: while solving so and so problem, I used SVM algorithm and obtained an F1 score of Y%. When I uttered those magical words, SVM and F1 score caught the eyes of the interviewer. Next 15 to 20 minutes, the interviewer asked me everything on SVM, and then he moved towards the performance metrics, where he asked me various questions like what is precision, what is recall, what is F1 score, what is accuracy, which metrics should be used where, and give me examples of situations where X and Y metrics are useful and A and B metrics are not useful, etc, etc, etc. And one more hack here is that you must be able to throw some of the words while giving answer to one of the questions in such a manner that the interviewer can catch those words and ask the questions on those words. You can make sure that you are asking the interviewer to ask the questions which you want him to ask. The second hack or tip during an interview is that to say no when you don't know the answer. Because if you say that I will try to give the answer, most of the time during the pressure situations, you might not be able to give the answer, and this leads to bad impression in the mind of the interviewer. Now let me talk about my ML round interview experience. Luckily, my interview round was one day before my college placements, and hence I was prepared very well for this round. Once the video started, the interviewer first introduced himself And then he asked me to introduce me to him. And as I mentioned earlier, in my intro, I added few magical lines which made him to ask me everything on SVM. He first asked me to write down the loss function of the SVM. I wrote down the hinge loss function, and then he asked me to take the derivative and draw the graph of that derivative. Once I draw the graph of that derivative, I showed him like this on the screen and he was satisfied. Then he asked me about the kernel trick. Once I mentioned the kernel trick, he asked me to give some examples of kernel tricks which are being present. I mentioned that there exists something called as radial basis functions. Once I mentioned this thing, he asked me to write the radial basis functions mathematics. That is the formula of radial basis function. I wrote the formula of radial basis function, and then he moved towards performance metrics like precision, recall, accuracy, F1 score, etc. And then he asked me to answer the question which said something like this: why do you think there exists so many metrics rather than keeping one metric such as accuracy? I was able to answer this question, and then he moved towards naive Bayes. He asked me to define naive Bayes in one line. Once I did that, he asked me few mathematics present in the naive Bayes, and the same thing happened with decision tree, random forest, etc. Once he was satisfied with my knowledge of classical ML, he moved towards deep learning. He asked me everything, including what is a neuron, what is activation function, do you know regularization, do you know dropout, etc, etc, etc. Once all these questions were answered, he looked into my CV and there was a tiny little word called transformers being written in my CV. Then he asked me to describe the architecture of the transformers. Once I described the architecture, he asked me to explain the reason for the presence of Scripps connections. Once I was able to answer this question, then he moved towards one more simple word which was mentioned in my CV, that is PC algorithm. He asked me the mathematics behind the PC algorithm, and as this was done, I think the interviewer was satisfied with my performance. By the time all these questions ended, we crossed 1 hour time limit which was allotted to my interview, and then we said bye-bye. This is what simply happened in my interview. Thank you. This is all what I had for this video. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment sections. I am always here to answer all the questions which you guys have. Thank you.